Hello from my beautiful new prison cell, penthouse apartment overlooking the River Thames. Did you know there are side hustles where you can make big returns from no money down? Today, we're looking at side hustles, and in particular, the side hustles that are all but guaranteed to yield you the highest possible returns from the least investment. We are all aware that there are certain legal grey areas, and that it is in these grey areas where a person can find some spectacular opportunities. Now, I don't want you to infer, just because I'm now locked up in Bedlam, that the side hustles we're about to talk about in this parody video will get you in any trouble. They won't probably. It's all good and perfectly legit. My own personal favourite is the fifth, which is legendary in its simplicity, duration, and the amount of money generated. And it certainly isn't the reason why I find myself in this place. Anyway, let's get straight to the good stuff. So side hustle number 1 is helping people to save money off their utility bills. And what could be more helpful than that? In fact, we're not just helping people to save some money off their bills, we're going to show them how they can reduce their bills to zero. That's right, no more utility bills ever again. And it's all perfectly legal. In order to get in on this hustle, you simply need to post some TikToks or Instagram Reels, letting people know that you will help them reduce their bills to zero. And that it's completely legally, that utility companies can't stop you. I guarantee that these posts will go viral. You will have the entire world queuing up to learn your secrets of how to reduce their bills to zero, especially during a cost of living crisis. When you have hordes of people lining up to know your secret, you simply charge them $20, or whatever you think appropriate, to let them in on the scheme. Then you just sit back and watch the money come flooding into your bank account. 100% pure profit from these rivers of gold. At this point, you're probably wondering what the secret is to cutting your utility bills to zero, and the answer is simplicity itself. But this isn't my secret to give away. We're actually taking this lesson from another enterprising Englishman called John Cummings. You see, John Cummings started out in this enterprise way back in the 1970s, probably before any of us were born, and he made a small fortune from it. In fact, so notorious was John's hustle that he even appeared on the popular 1980s TV show, That's Life, a show which championed consumer rights. Unfortunately, I can't access the clip of John on the show. That seems to be lost in the BBC archives. But I do have all of his secrets. John Cummings would post adverts in regional and national newspapers in Britain informing people that he would tell them the secret to reducing their utility bills to zero. All they had to do was post him £5, and in return, he would send them a pack with everything they would need to do in order to achieve zero-cost utility bills. And thousands, tens of thousands of people replied in earnest. What did they receive from John? Well, it was a template letter to all of their utility providers asking them to discontinue the service. That's right, if you contact your electricity, gas, or other service providers and ask them to terminate your service, they will stop charging you, and your monthly bills will fall to zero. I didn't have any figures showing how many people actually followed John's advice and cut off their service in order to save the money, but John's advice was entirely accurate and completely legal, and it made him a fortune. Now, you need to remember that this was in the 1980s. There was no internet. John had to make do with newspaper advertising. Imagine how much you could scale this opportunity now you have immediate access to the whole world through your smartphone. Imagine the hustle John Cummings would be showing at this point. He would be generating millions each week. That's the energy you need to show to make your fortune from this or one of the following side hustles. A truly incredible opportunity. Now we move to side hustle number 2. This one requires a little more active participation, but also provides greater recurring income. This is becoming an Uber driver. Now for this hustle you will need to have a driver's license, but not a car. That part isn't necessary. Those things are expensive to buy and maintain, and who can be bothered with that? You may be wondering how you can become an Uber driver without a car, and obviously you can't. But you can be an Uber driver without buying a car. You see, all the major car manufacturers will offer you a test drive if you're interested in buying a new car, and of course, you can be interested without ever buying the car. A quick Google search shows dozens of dealers offering extended test drives. and these things start from 48 hours at the low end and go all the way up to 1 week. You can literally borrow a brand new car from the dealer for a week for absolutely no payment. Now, if you consider how many car manufacturers there are, how many different models they make, and how many different car dealers there are in your area, you can literally drive a brand new car each week for multiple years without ever having to buy one. You will need to be careful to cycle between each manufacturer and dealer so that they don't catch on to our little wheeze, but that's not difficult. And now you're an Uber driver with a brand spanking new car to ply your trade. And as an extra bonus, you have zero maintenance bills to worry about because you're going to trade in the car each week. What can go wrong? This really is a great hustle with a low cost of entry into a market that usually has a high capital requirement. This works especially well if you live near a large city or even a tourist hotspot. You could just use it as a summer gig to make some extra money during the break. The sky's the limit. Now obviously, you might want to look at your local council's licensing requirements and the insurance requirements of this, but I can't advise on that. I'm just a random guy in jail. Moving along now to our third side hustle. Here we find ourselves selling pets, and what could be happier or more fulfilling than finding a loving home for a cute little pet? Obviously, we can't deal with real living pets here. You probably need a license to do that. Plus, real pets need feeding and watering, and their poop needs cleaning, plus they sometimes get ill and have to go to the vet. That all sounds like a complete headache, so we'll dodge that bullet. The curious-minded among you may be wondering how we can sell pets without ever having any pets. Don't worry, I've got you. In fact, it's Gary Dawg who has us this time. You see, way back in 1975, Gary, who was an advertising executive in California, stumbled on one of the greatest pet businesses in history when he started selling pet rocks. Yes, you've heard that right. Gary was selling pet rocks, and it made him a millionaire. Gary collected beautifully smooth rocks from Bajan, California, packaged them in well-designed custom-made cardboard boxes, and even included care instructions with each pet rock. Sounds slightly ridiculous, right? Well, Gary sold more than 1 million of these pet rocks for $4 each and made himself a millionaire in the process. And when we adjust $4 million in 1975 dollars to 2024, we actually get $23.4 million. Doesn't sound so silly now, does it? The man made an absolute fortune from selling rocks to people. If you think back to John Cummings at the top of this list, Gary was also operating in a time before the internet. His business relied purely on word of mouth and adverts in magazines, and he generated $23 million in sales from selling rocks. Image what you could now do with your smartphone and access to the entire world population. Now, where you get the rocks from, that's your business. I'm not asking any questions. You do you, boo. Now we move along, and before we get to my personal favorite side hustle in spot 5, we stop at opportunity number 4, which is selling tickets to events in your area. These events could be concerts, gigs, pantomimes, or other such local productions. Now, before you start rolling your eyes at me and complaining about the stress and complexities of arranging any sort of event, I never said you should organize an event. Who could ever be bothered doing that? The important thing with this hustle is that you let other people organize the event. You simply sell the tickets, and then you keep 100% of the revenue. All you have to do here is find free events that are being held in your area. Turn up before the event starts in a high visibility jacket and with a little book of tickets, which can be bought for pennies online, and then place yourself at the head of the queue and charge people for entry. The important thing here is a high visibility jacket and having an air of insouciant authority. We all know from personal experience the person in the high-vis jacket is the person in charge. If they tell you to form a line, you do. If they tell you to pay $5 for entry, you do, no questions asked. When everyone is safely admitted to the venue, you can head for home with a bucket full of cash earned from 20 minutes of easy labor. It is important, should anyone in the queue have the temerity to ask you why you're selling tickets to an event they thought was free, you can't lie to them and say they have to buy a ticket to get in. That would be wrong, and you would go to jail. However, you can simply tell them the tickets you have available are $5 each and ask if they would like to buy one. If a person chooses to buy a $5 ticket, That's their business. As long as you don't misrepresent the situation, their misinterpretation of what's happening is their business. And people should mind their own business. And that's how you make a 100% return on tickets for a free event arranged by someone else. Whatever could be easier. Now we arrive at the fifth side hustle, and my own personal favorite. Today, we are renting car parking spaces. And again, before you start shouting at your screen that you don't own any land for a car park, or that you can't afford to rent any, I never said that you had to. You should have learned by now, that's not how we work in these parts. So, how can you operate a car park without any land? It's really quite simple. For this lesson, we're going to check in with one of the all-time great entrepreneurs. A man who ran this scheme from 1958 to 1983, and then vanished into the ether, and no one even knew his name. That's a 25-year hustle and a clean getaway. So, how did it work? Well, in 1958, our mystery man positioned himself in the car park of Bristol Zoo, a small zoo in a mid-sized British town. He set about collecting £1 for every car that parked in the car park, and over the next 25 years, he became something of a cult figure. He was subsequently described as impeccably polite and a complete gentleman, always happy to chat with families who were taking their children to see the animals, even becoming something of an attraction himself. The thing is, our mystery man wasn't employed to collect car parking payments. The zoo, which was privately owned, thought the man worked for the council which owned the land, and for their part, the council thought the man was employed by the zoo. In reality, the car park was free to use, a complete waste of an opportunity to generate an income, which was cleverly spotted by our mystery man. This charade went on for 25 years until one day our mystery man vanished, presumably into a very comfortable retirement. The thing is, because he became so well loved, when he stopped turning up for work, people became concerned. The people visiting the zoo were worried and inquired where he was. The zoo, who had no idea, contacted the council to ask what was happening and who was going to collect the car parking fees. The council, slightly perplexed, confirmed they had no idea who the man was and that they assumed he worked for the zoo. And so, after 25 years, and an estimated £500,000 haul, when adjusted for inflation, our Kaiser simply vanished as a very wealthy man. And yes, before you start asking in the comments, this man was wearing a high-visibility jacket every day he turned up to work. So, the opportunity is obvious. Find a free-to-use car park next to a busy attraction, park, train station, or such like, and then simply start collecting a nominal parking fee from everyone that wants to use the space. The landowner, who is happy to let the land be used for free, is none the poorer, and the people who are paying to park are obviously happy with the fee, otherwise they would go elsewhere. A situation where everyone is a winner. Lovely jubbly. Just like our other opportunities, this is basically 100% profit and could generate you a small fortune over the course of a lifetime. And there you have it, the top 5 barely legal side hustles of 2024, which are all but guaranteed to make you a small fortune, or possibly lead to your arrest. Comment below and let me know which of these incredible opportunities is your favorite, and any success you have had implementing them yourselves. Finally, just before we part company, and I continue to serve a 25-year stretch, I want to emphasize that this is a parody and that you definitely should not try any of the side hustles mentioned in this video. Not unless you want to be my new cellmate. Until next time, goodbye and send cigarettes.